Of course, from the MMQB. Albert, appreciate you giving us a few minutes here on, this afternoon. Thanks, man.
Yeah, sorry about the delay there, guys. I had a work call that came in that I had to take. But I appreciate your flexibility.
Yeah, no worries. We know you're a busy man. You got a lot of stuff you're juggling. We always appreciate you making time for us. So, Albert, I'll just start you off with the blanket question that we're all wondering here in Cleveland. Is it time for the Browns to make a quarterback change, and do you think that's what's coming down the pike here tomorrow with Kevin Stefanski as the team gets back to the practice field?
I mean, I don't know. I'm sort of in the camp that, like, watching Joe Flacco play, I don't know that he's really the issue. You just don't have a lot of firepower on offense. The 2 picks he threw against Detroit, one was clearly a miscommunication. The other one, I believe it was Jerry Jeudy fell down, right? Like, so, I think it sort of rides on where your priorities are and, how close Dillon Gabriel has looked to Joe Flacco in practice. Because you're still at a point of the season where you have to do what's best for the team to keep the guys engaged. We're not at the point of the season where it's like, okay, like now we got to evaluate the rookies. The Browns are still very much in it. They're 1-3, and it's not like, it's not like there's never been a team that's been 1-3 that's come back out of that sort of hole. To me, it really boils down to, can you sell Dillon Gabriel to the team? And a lot of that's going to ride on what you've seen in practice. And if you can, then maybe it's time to see if he can give you a spark and, give you a little bit more. But I don't think we're at the point where if Gabriel was that far off from where Flacco is, that Flacco's played so poorly that you could just turn the reins over to him.
Albert, how much do teams really consider putting quarterbacks in a perfect situation to make their debut? So much has been made of how bad this Browns offensive line is. A lot has been made about the receivers dropping passes. You got Brian Flores' defense this week. It seems like it might not be the best spot to start Dillon Gabriel, but I guess you kind of could have said the same thing about the Giants starting Jackson Dart against a really good Chargers defense.
I mean, no, it's a consideration. I think they're separate things, though. I mean, I think with the Giants, it was just their offense had gotten to the point where it was like they're not performing at all in the red zone. They're not performing at all on third down. And the quarterback is a huge part of that problem. Like, if you look at, Russell Wilson's number and those numbers in those critical situations, it kind of got to the point where it was tough for the coaches to sell Russell Wilson to the team, especially considering how Jackson Dart had played in camp, right? So I think there were people in that locker room who really genuinely felt like Jackson Dart's the best thing for our team right now. I don't know if that same dynamic exists in the Browns locker room. So you are talking about this as an evaluation tool, a growth tool for your team if you are going to be putting Dillon Gabriel in there. And then, I think it can come into play. It's, do we think that this is the right spot for a young player? Because confidence is such a big thing for a young quarterback. And, if you put him in a spot where his first NFL start is going to crush his confidence, you don't want to do that. So I don't think it's the same as the Giants situation at all. And I think it's going to be handled as such by the Browns staff.
Albert Breer joining us on the Fan Hotline. Albert, a lot has changed in the AFC North over the last couple weeks or so. Does it feel like at this point it is the Steelers' division to lose?
I mean, I don't know. I still, if you put a gun to my head right now, I'd probably still pick the Ravens to win the division. And I know they're 2 games back. I still think they have the most talented roster. Now, we'll see what happens with Lamar's hamstring. Obviously, that could throw a wrench into everything. But I don't know. I mean, the Steelers beat a Vikings team that was starting Carson Wentz last week and almost blew that one. And they turned the ball over, or the Patriots turned the ball over a handful of times. Otherwise, they would have beaten the Steelers, and the Patriots won 4 games the last 2 years in a row. So I think there's a ceiling there for the Steelers. I think that they still going to be a lot better than they have been. But based on what I know about the two teams now, I still think the Ravens are have the better roster. And, I think if Burrow was in the lineup, we'd probably talk about the Bengals as a favorite in the division. So it's certainly not what we thought it would be a month ago. But I'd still look at the Ravens and say I think there's a ton of room for the Ravens to be a lot better than they have been, and I think they will be better than they have been.
Elsewhere around the league, Albert, it felt like last night was a pretty big victory for Mike McDaniel, even though it wasn't perfect. Does that win over the Jets in primetime take a little bit of heat off him? And if so, as we start to look towards NFL coaches who could be on the hot seat, who do you think could be that first coach to fall?
Yeah, I think I'd say the heat's off of Mike McDaniel a little bit now because the schedule eases up a little bit. I think they got Carolina here in the next couple of weeks, so they have a chance to actually build some momentum. Now, I still don't think they're a very good team, and I'd be surprised if they won more than 6 games. But I do think there's an opportunity in front of Mike McDaniel to build a little bit of momentum here, and make a case for being the guy who's going to lead them through what I think is going to be a relatively significant rebuild the next couple of years. I think a lot of people would put Daboll in that category. The young quarterback played well. I think as long as the young quarterback continues to play well there, even if they aren't winning a ton of games, I think it wouldn't make sense to sort of upset the equilibrium there. I don't know who the next. I'm missing somebody. I'm just not thinking of somebody right now. I know that. Tennessee would be the other one, but
yeah,
Tennessee to me, this is such a massive rebuild, and they've been through so much change over the last couple of years, and the owner's been so scattershot. Does she really do that again? I'm not sure. I think it's going to that's really going to depend on the sort of effort and fire you see from the team. I think as long as you continue to see it, as long as you see a team that's locked in over the next few weeks, Brian Callahan's got a chance to get himself out of this, but certainly he'd be somebody who's got some pressure on him as well.
Along the lines of coaches sort of on the hot seat that could get fired, and Albert, I know you've been on with Nick and JP before, and you've talked plenty about how you don't get the sense that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Berry are going anywhere, that they're probably here back in 2026. I get the same sense, so I'm not necessarily saying it's going to happen. But in relation to a quarterback change, understanding that Dillon Gabriel is the guy that the Browns really wanted, took him in the 3rd round, they've touted him as the guy that really fits what they want to do. Is there a world where that starts almost like a proverbial clock on these two guys where it's like, well, hey, now you have the quarterback out there that you guys wanted, and if he struggles, what does that say about the future for those two guys moving forward with the organization?
No, because you drafted him in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
If the guy was the 5th overall pick, then yeah, maybe, but I think, really, and I'm not sure enough people in Cleveland are looking at it this way, and maybe the Browns need to message it a little bit, but, I think the reality of this year is this is a reset year for the organization. And, I think they came to the realization that, that core of players that they made the playoffs a couple times with, the guys, Myles Garrett, Denzel Ward, Wyatt Teller, Joel Bitonio, trying to win with that group, win at the highest level with that group, the time was sort of up for them, And so that's why you put together the trade, and you pass on the chance to draft Travis Hunter 2nd overall in order to get more capital, so you can build up build up your roster and get younger in a lot of different places. And look, part of this is the expense of the Deshaun Watson trade, in that for 3 straight years you didn't have 1st-round picks. I think, looking at the quarterback, that's part of it. But to me, it's the young development of the development of the youth in the roster in general that's really going to guide a lot of that. And right now, I'd say you have to feel pretty good about that part of it for the Browns.
Yeah.
Carson Schwarzenegger's played, Mason Graham, Quinshon Judkins, Harold Fannin. It looks like at least the first stage of that reset right now, even though it's not adding up to a ton of wins on the field. It looks like the first stage of that reset's actually going pretty well. you have 2 first-round picks next year. Like, this could be a significantly different-looking team in 2026. And by the way, you do that while you maybe still have guys like Garrett and Ward in the roster. I think there's reason to believe that the team's going to get better over the course of the year. And, if I'm Jimmy Haslam, I think a lot of what I'm basing my decision-making on what this looks like in 2026 from a front office and coaching standpoint is based on how that youth movement on the roster is coming along.
You mentioned those 2 first-round picks, Albert. This Browns team just feels like it has so many holes. Like, the entire offensive line could be different next year. Obviously, receivers a big question mark. Do you think it's a foregone conclusion before the calendar even flips to October that they're definitely going to draft a quarterback in the first round next season?
No, I think it's silly to make that unless you look at it and say, yes, we're drafting in the top 5, and it's like it was a couple of years ago where you have Caleb Williams and Drake May and eventually like Jaden Daniels got there, but he wasn't seen that way at the beginning. Unless we're going to be drafting in the top 2 or 3 picks. And yes, there's a quarterback class that's definitely going to have somebody that's going to be available to us that's going to be worth taking. Like, I don't know how you could have that determination right now. Garrett Nussmeier, Cade Klubnik, like a lot of the guys that everybody expected, Arch Manning, a lot of the guys that people expected to have dynamite years, it hasn't gone that way. I mean, I don't know. Can we say who the first quarterback taken is going to be right now? I don't think I know the answer to that. I don't think any of these guys are locks to go in the top 5. It could wind up being somebody like Fernando Mendoza or Dante Moore from Oregon. Like, it's just so iffy right now. Until we have like a full year of looking at the quarterback class, I don't know how you could make the determination, because certainly there isn't anybody that you would say, yeah, like that guy's a top 5 pick. It could be one of those years where there isn't one. It could wind up being a year where there are 2 or 3 in the top 5. It's just that there's that amount of uncertainty, I'd say, with what the position looks like, which is very different than the last 2 years. Like, I think last year we had a pretty good idea at this point that it wasn't going to be a great quarterback class in 2025, and the year before that, I think we knew it was going to be a really good class going into 2024.
He's Albert Breer of the Monday Morning Quarterback. We always appreciate him stopping by weekly on Tuesdays. Albert, we'll let you get back to it, man. Thank you so much for stopping by, and great stuff as always.
Thanks, Albert.
All right, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.